Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's study session for the City of Casa Grande on this August 5th of 2024. Tonight we have a presentation and discussion relating to the supplements to the Maricopa Association of Governments, commonly known as MAG, standard details for the Public Works Construction 2024 edition.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to turn this over to Mac to do the presentation. He's the one that developed all these details.
I mean, he did all the work.
Of course. Dwayne and I just take the credit.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So just wanted to kind of give a quick presentation. I'm hoping that we can have some recess time in between, but that depends on how many hard questions you ask me afterwards. But we'll go ahead and start with, oh, it will work. Well, can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So I kind of wanted, this is the only slide I'm going to read word for word, but I think it kind of sets the stage, if you will. Standard drawings contain standard notes and details and are referenced in contract plans. That way, these commonly used notes and details do not have to be recopied again and again into every set of plans. Standard drawings help reduce both the number of drawings and project plans and the time it takes to prepare those project plans. So this was kind of what are standard details, and if you look at the picture, it kind of describes a generic engineering design process, and you can see some steps that standard details in that process would eliminate time and ultimately cost to both city projects and developer-driven projects in the city. Things like under number 1, you can see what are the constraints. When you have standard details, you instantly know as the engineer what are the rules that I have to play by and what are some of the constraints I have to build my design. Also in Section 3, you can see drawing diagrams and gather needed materials. When those diagrams are already produced for you, that saves time and money for the project as a whole. Next slide. So the City of Casa Grande already adopted the Maricopa Association of Government standards in City Code. MAG has stated that agencies, we're not a MAG member agency, but agencies that have adopted their standards are able to supplement as needed. And I included kind of a picture here of supplements and a dietary suggestion. And it's kind of the same thing, right? We're not looking to change everything. We're just looking to add to our diet, if you will, already of what we use in our construction tools. Next slide, please. So I wanted to go over some of the key modifications and changes. And I'm not going to go over every single detail. You're welcome to look at them. They're on our city website. But some key issues that we've seen that we think we can improve with some small changes. So this is an image of our sanitation crews and doing trash pickup for some of the places we have around town. And you can see in the top left corner of the screen, we had an incident where one of our sanitation trucks fell into a collapsed, eroded area in a parking lot. And one of the design decisions that we went forward with was changing our refuse areas to allow for concrete pads to be put around them, things that allow our sanitation workers to do their job efficiently. You know, this is something that took a few hours to get our sanitation truck up and running again, and thankfully there wasn't any major damage done to it, but something that we're learning, you know, things that we can do to improve our infrastructure to allow city employees to do their job quickly, efficiently, and without minimal costs. Next slide, please. Another section that was really detailed and we tried to do a really good job on was our street section. The major focus in this area was modifying our principal arterial and minor arterial cross sections, both to make better grant applicable street cross sections that meet needs like multimodal needs and also safety concerns, and essentially develop a street cross section that is of good value for the city and the people that live here and does everything that they could possibly need. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Another section was our sewer section. Just some things that we added to make contracting easier, make our designs easier to procure, cheaper. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And then a big thing that we wanted to touch on was something that's brought up, and you might have heard about it, is micro-trenching. We have a couple different contractors that are looking to use new methods to construct and to install their fiber optic lines in town, and this is a relatively new method that a lot of companies are looking at. And we see it as a good advantage to the community where you can kind of see in this picture, a normal trench would be, you know, anywhere from 12 to 24 inches for a fiber optic line. This methodology will allow them to essentially construct a 1 to 2 inch trench that has very minimal impact on the roadway and minimal impact on drivers as well, but limiting the amount of traffic control devices that are in the right of way and things like that. The concern there is obviously there could be screw ups, for lack of a better term, if they're not careful. So these standards make sure that those screw ups are avoided as much as possible and we're able to move forward and preserve our roadways. Next slide. So these standards, we plan to have an annual review period where contractors, the general public, anybody can make comments on those, and we can review those comments and make sure that we're staying up to date with current construction methodologies, kind of like the micro-trenching, and making sure that we're addressing new ways that people can work in the right-of-way, but also maintain the best right-of-way that's an advantage for the taxpayers of the community. Next slide. I think that's everything. I just wanted to touch that these really do focus on the engineering division's mission statement in providing good growth to the city and a balanced way that benefits both developers and the people that live here. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone? Matt?
Got a comment? Let me turn. Okay. Thanks. A question I didn't see in the detail on there about the micro trenching. How deep did you?
Yeah,
Is it standard?
that's a great question. So
'Cause I know that's a thing.
there's a challenge that we have to decide as a city and essentially as a public works department to make sure that the work that's happening in the right of way is not something that will affect our future projects and cost the future projects. So to answer your question, we've set that standard depth at 16 inches. We feel that that's a very conservative depth that will allow them to not increase a whole lot of costs, but also protect our current pavement cross section.
And what is that covered with? I mean, I don't want to get too details. Like, is it just like,
What do they backfill it with?
yeah?
The standards today allow for a slurry backfill. That's another great advantage that method has, where a small trench like that, they can do a slurry backfill, fill it very quickly, and get out of the roadway very quickly as well.
So like a concrete backfill?
Yeah, it's a concrete mix. I wouldn't say concrete because it's a low strength material is the technical term, but it's essentially a slurry mix. Yep,
Quicker than a sewer line then?
correct, much quicker.
Ouch. Hey, it's necessary. It's going at a good pace. It just takes longer. It's much bigger.
Yeah, this will
Yeah, a
allow,
lot bigger.
typically a contractor can lay about 400 to 500 feet of fiber optic line a day with standard methodologies. This brings them up to 2,000, 3,000 feet a day, so much faster deployment.
And then the other thing that kind of made me think was like I see the reasoning for like the garbage bunker, but I also want to keep in mind when we do these things that every business that gets built now is going to have to pay a lot more money for something, and that's something that we need to be sensitive to and not overburden
Over-design it?
and over-design it for people, because that's where I hear about stuff, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. This one, that was good graphic, right? I mean, you could see there was a reason, but it's one of those things is we want to make sure we don't have all these little things, because when you're building a business or operating a business and updating it, you get hit with an extra $10,000 here and an extra $5,000 there. I mean, it really adds up, especially to our smaller businesses. So I just want to be cognizant of that and make sure that we're sensitive to people, we're not overdoing it, but,
What 100% understood. I think that's definitely a factor that we tried to take into consideration when we sent this out for review. We sent it to third parties to kind of look at it like that. What are the cost differences that it might add? And I want to add also that every plan that's going to come through the city is still going to be subject to engineering review. So there may be cases where these don't make sense, or it makes sense to modify slightly the standard details. And all the plans are still going to go through our standard plan review process and should be able to accommodate things where they make sense as well.
Okay.
Real quick, for that fiber line, typically, is it 16 inches or is it shorter than that?
So we adopted most of our standards from the city of Mesa. So they've been doing this for about 2 years now. Their standard depth was about 12 to 14 inches. We had some concerns with that depth when you go to do a mill and overlay or a road reconstruction. There's a good chance that you might hit those lines. It's still the contractor or the company's responsibility to relocate those lines, but you know how that goes. Sometimes they miss one that's supposed to be there. So we feel a lot safer at that 16-inch depth that allows us to, if we need to go in and redo the road, we can do that without anybody's internet being interrupted and efficiently.
Yeah, I think
Unless you put a sewer line through it.
it's important to note that we tried to take into consideration how this is going to impact everyone who has already gone into that right-of-way and has to continue to maintain their facilities. We wanted to make sure that we created those buffers so that they can, reasonably do their work as long as, or as well as us. So these standards are not set in stone, just like our access management standards. One size doesn't fit all, but it's a great starting point and helps direct people in the direction that we want them to go. And then we can sit down and negotiate some of those finer details when something doesn't fit.
Is there some fiber already out there, isn't it? How deep are they?
I mean, some of it is as deep as 24 inches. I know the stuff that we ran into on Pinal, unfortunately, with our sewer line, which is going to create some delays, getting underneath the state highway, it varied. What was the range?
Anywhere between 6 to 10 feet, which is very, very uncommon for fiber. Typically, 24 inches is a standard.
10
But,
feet?
Yep.
Wow.
So it's
That
created.
ditch witch didn't work very good, did it?
No.
Well, they were boring, so, if they're not maintaining their horizontal control, it can create some real issues, so. And this was all put in after we did our potholing and located all the utilities to do our design. This happened in between that and the start of construction.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Matt?
Sorry, I want to say one more about the micro trenching. I hope that when this comes, because I've been doing some research since I've heard about it personally, but I just want to make sure we get some long-range data from people that have been doing it for a while, because, it's just I know it's not a newer technology, but it is
It's
here.
new to us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know they've been doing it a while, but that's good, because then we can get some information about it.
Yes, yeah.
And we spent a lot of time up in the valley with the other cities, talking to the people who are actually out there on a day-to-day basis, working in that situation. So we were exposed to what they've experienced. We know what works and what doesn't. We did a lot of research, and we do not make these decisions lightly. So we tried to take everything into account.
Yeah, I always say one of our biggest assets or ownership things is the roads, like the most expensive. You don't realize it, and so we want to make sure and keep those as best we can, obviously. Yep, and the sewer lines. Always the stuff you don't see. Take
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Dwayne?
like to add something while we were talking about fiber. On all our new projects like McCartney and Treckle, we're actually putting conduit in for future fiber use. So, and other people will be able to use that, not just us.
Oh, so that way we don't have to trench and,
Yeah.
cool.
Thinking ahead, wow. What a concept.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just add
Go
a
ahead,
couple of
Larry.
things, not to belabor the topic, but first and foremost, these standards are actually reviewed by the city engineer and adopted by the city engineer, but as part of our dissemination process, Mr. Harmon talked a little bit about the work they had done in advance. We wanted to make sure the council was aware of this in case you do get any calls along the way. The micro trenching modification is one that is important to us because of the number of broadband companies that are expressing interest in Casa Grande today. And as all of you know, there's been a few of those that advanced launched before this, but many of them have elected, because we've allowed the micro trenching, to utilize that standard, even though it was not within our standards today, right? So just know that we've been working very closely with that particular industry as we're seeing more and more broadband opportunities for our residents in the community.
Is this just an information?
Yes,
It won't come back to us?
There's no
so-
action that the mayor and
Okay.
council will be taking on this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll stand adjourned till 7 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. That was painless.